Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're uncovering the high-stakes history of agricultural genetics, and we're looking at the visionary scientists who quite literally reinvented our modern food system. You know, we rarely stop to think about the science hidden inside the grains we eat every single day, but the journey from highly vulnerable crops to these modern biotech marvels, it's honestly one of the most fascinating scientific races in human history.
All right, let's jump right in by challenging a massive historical assumption that completely defined farming back in the early 1900s. The question was simple: does the prettiest ear of corn yield the most food? For generations, the logical answer just seemed to be a resounding yes. Farmers fundamentally believed that visual perfection was the ultimate indicator of a plant's agricultural performance. But, as we're about to see, Mother Nature had a very, very different set of rules.
Section 1. The Myth of Pretty Corn. Picture this: the USDA was actually out there encouraging farmers to save seeds from ears that just looked the best. We're talking about the ones with perfectly straight rows and bright, vibrant colors. It was essentially a beauty pageant for vegetables. But then along comes a young, self-taught statistician named Henry A. Wallace. He decides to test these prize-winning show ears against much less attractive ones. And guess what? He proved there was absolutely zero link between a corn's outward appearance and its actual yield. Nothing. Instead, he developed a hybrid he called Copper Cross, where he focused entirely on invisible, high-yielding genetic traits.
Section 2. The hybrid revolution begins.
So, Wallace founds the Hybrid Corn Company in 1926, which, by the way, later becomes Pioneer. But changing farmers' minds? Yeah, that was tough. By 1935, hybrid adoption was sitting at a measly 6%. But then came 1936. This was a year absolutely defined by brutal drought and the suffocating dirt storms of the Dust Bowl. When nearly 30% of Iowa's traditional corn acres completely failed, a specific hybrid called Pioneer Hi-Bred 307 actually thrived, all thanks to its incredibly deep roots and strong stalks. That undeniable performance under extreme duress just changed everything. Within a few short years, by 1942, adoption in places like Iowa skyrocketed to almost 100%.
The crucial takeaway here is that Wallace proved function absolutely has to dictate form if we're ever going to feed a growing world. The Copper Cross and the resilience of that 307 hybrid proved that the future of agriculture wasn't going to be won on the surface. No, it was going to be won deep down in the DNA.
Section 3. Solving the labor bottleneck. But here's the catch. Scaling this miracle crop introduced a massive, totally unexpected human challenge. To produce high-quality hybrid seed corn, you have to cross a female line with a male line. To do that without the plant just pollinating itself, workers literally had to walk through the fields by hand and pluck the male tassels off the female plants. And because production is incredibly seasonal, taking place in a super tight 3 to 5 week window, hiring the vast armies of temporary workers needed for this became practically impossible. You simply couldn't hire enough people to detassel cornfields by hand to meet global demand.
Section 4. Duvick's genetic breakthrough.
Enter a brilliant young scientist who realized the solution wasn't finding more hands, but rather rewriting the plant's biology. Donald N. Duvick had been drafted into World War II and trained in genetics in a post-war French college. After serving as an army clerk and studying at a specialized college in Biarritz, France, he brought this incredibly rigorous, systematic approach to agronomy when he joined Pioneer in 1951. His specific mission? Fix that manual detasseling bottleneck once and for all.
Duvick intensively studied this fascinating genetic system that basically acted like a biological software update. It naturally turned the plant's pollen production on and off. By mastering these specific genetic traits, known as T, C, and S, seed companies could grow female lines that were naturally sterile, which meant, you guessed it, they no longer needed an army of seasonal workers stepping into the fields to remove tassels. It was an absolutely incredible leap in biological engineering that set a brand new global standard.
But, you know, biology is complex, and Mother Nature always pushes back. The T cytoplasm was used extensively for about 2 decades. But when it became highly susceptible to a severe southern corn leak blight in 1970, the industry got a massive wake-up call. Duvick helped the industry pivot, highlighting the critical danger of relying too heavily on a single genetic trait. They temporarily had to go back to mechanical and manual detasseling, which fundamentally proved that genetic diversity isn't just some corporate buzzword. It's a literal, absolute requirement for our global food security.
Section 5. The Biotech Boom. Duvick's foundational work eventually led him to become Senior Vice President of Research, and that really set the stage for a technological explosion.
What you should take away here is how mastering the genetics of just a single seed rapidly expanded into a whole portfolio of biological protections. It wasn't just about corn anymore. Pioneer expanded heavily into robust soybean breeding in the 1970s. Decades later, they launched Plenish high-oleic soybeans, bringing biotech health benefits directly to our tables. Out in the fields, they developed Chrome to defend against the devastating corn rootworm, and later introduced Vorseed and List, giving farmers a single-bag solution with multiple modes of protection against insects and tolerance to 4 different herbicides.
And the results of this boom? They're undeniable. Just look at the staggering leap in yields here. We go from the bare minimum survival yields of the 1930s all the way to 2023, where a farmer named David Hula shattered the limits and set a new world record, a mind-blowing 623.84 bushels per acre. This right here is the ultimate realization of what Wallace and Duvick started all those years ago: relentless, data-driven, genetic yield improvement.
Section 6. The Future of Agriculture. So as we wrap up this explainer, we really have to look at what's sprouting next on the horizon. Scientists are right now looking to replicate that incredible corn miracle, but this time in wheat. They're using proprietary non-GMO hybrid technology to trigger the exact same massive yield explosions Henry Wallace sparked a century ago. And at the same time, they're utilizing gene editing to stack natural disease-resistant traits that already exist within the corn genome, which protects crops much more efficiently than ever before.
So the final thought I'll leave you with today is this. If early hybridization saved us from the devastating Dust Bowl, what global crises will today's genetic editing help us overcome tomorrow? As climate challenges continue to mount and our global population keeps growing, the relentless reinvention of our crops isn't just some neat history lesson, it is literally the key to our survival. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning what's possible.